Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today on the show, I am thrilled to welcome Sara Frasca, a powerhouse entrepreneur, business coach, and former General Mills leader who knows exactly what it takes to shake up the status quo. Sara's journey from the corporate boardroom to the gritty front lines of startup gave her a unique lens on how to drive a real, disruptive innovation. Now she's helping business owners scale by bridging the gap between big picture creativity and the disciplined accountability required to hit those 7-figure milestones. We're diving into how to empower your teams, ditch the fear of failure, and build a culture where growth isn't just a goal, it's almost inevitable. So let's get ready to turn insights into action. And Sara, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's an honor to be here.
When we talk corporate, General Mills, you worked enterprise, large global corporate and made a shift into what you're doing today. So tell us a little bit about the journey and why what you're doing today is so important.
Thank you. Well, just like most folks these days, my path has been a journey. As you said, it's a meandering journey. I started out at General Mills and really worked with lots of great people, super smart, wonderful systems, great processes. I learned a ton. And I had the opportunity to work on some of the world's biggest brands, which was great. I then went to the entrepreneurial side, and I was a part of kind of an entrepreneurial business that was in a tech space. And it was really neat because after my 2 years with them, I went back to General Mills. And in my first stint, I would say that I kind of saluted, the corporate flag, like, yes, we do things this way. Okay. When I went back, I had that entrepreneurial experience to kind of question, hey, why do we do it this way? Or would it be okay to try it this way? And so hopefully I did it with some humility and grace, but I started asking questions. And I think I turned into kind of a different leader within that corporate space. And I was, I learned a ton. It was a very again, exciting time to be a part of wonderful brands, but doing it in a way where I was invoking some of that innovation and that startup energy. Then I went the coaching route. I started coaching. I started doing a lot of consulting for different businesses, big and small, but I really started to specialize in the professional service side of kind of medium-sized businesses and helping them to build systems, build processes, grow and build their teams in order to have the scalability. So that's kind of where I've really, maybe hit my niche and, had a lot of fun. I think when you ask the question, why is this important? I'll maybe just end with that. I feel like we cannot innovate. We cannot have those creative problem solving moments if we don't have a structure to lean against. So Brene Brown is one of my very favorites. I read all her books. I listen to her podcast and everything. She delves into this from a human perspective. And I would say in our humanity, we cannot, get to a place where we are growing, evolving, changing, happy, joyous, if we don't have the fight or flight components met, right? And so if we're constantly in fight or flight, we are not maybe using the rational brain, thinking through things. It's the same in the corporate world. It's the same in the business world. If we don't have good fundamentals to lean against, how will we ever disrupt the model of serving our clients or change the way we're communicating with each other? And so what I've really been proud of is the model that we've created at Point Northeast, to let businesses grow and scale, but to do it in a way that is sustainable. It is pushed down to the levels that can do it. It doesn't all have to be just the owner that's doing it. And I've seen immense change in these businesses. It's been really fun.
And it's a fabulous thing. With my practice, we lean heavily into it's an equation that I've evolved over the last almost 20 years. People plus process times technology equals growth and scale, or effectiveness and efficiency. All businesses have people, process, and technology. Having the fundamentals, having that framework is imperative for us to be able to be innovative. I like to say that we can't break the rules if we don't know what they are. And those are those moments where, right, in my being a little bit disruptive, right, we want to challenge the norms, the way that you did when you went back into General Mills to ask questions. And questions are so incredibly powerful, and it allows us to look at our businesses through different lenses. And sometimes it's really hard as an owner to look at the business and be critical of it because we've invested our life into it. We've built it, we've grown it. It is our everything. And so having that external view, somebody who can come in and ask good questions, supportive questions, right? But that challenge the thinking and the assumptions that we might have about how good we are at what we do is huge. So, Sara, with the time that you've invested in building Point Northeast, I'm sure that you have some client stories. You have some, those stories, those things. I like to tell the ones personally that didn't go the way we thought they were going to go, but then something cool happened. Do you have a story you can share with us?
Yeah, I have all sorts of stories. I mean, we've been working with clients big and small. I would say one particular one comes to mind when you ask this question, and I would say it's a business that is probably kind of in the mid-sized, it's maybe $30 million in annual revenue. And they have built a very obviously tremendous backbone of their organization. But what they didn't anticipate was that they were still running a business that operated that craft. It's an architectural firm. They were running an architectural firm. They were not running a business. And so when I came to them with some of these business principles, it was honestly kind of rocket science to them. Things like, let's develop an organizational chart that not only shows the people in the business, but it shows the accountability that they have. And it shows the reporting structure, it shows the roles, responsibilities. And this was earth shattering to them. But it opened up all sorts of opportunities and it came out of the woodworks. It was people saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I reported to that person. Or, oh, that makes sense. Now, if I have a decision, it's going to flow through the business in this manner. And so it all of a sudden provided clarity where there was almost chaos previously. And so, it aligned the business in a way where the ownership could make decisions through the leadership team, through each of the functional areas, and then like a business, the conversations, the decision, the impact flow downwards to the lowest person in the organization in order to have them feel empowered that they were connected to the story and the content and the why of what was happening. And they knew what their piece of that business was, how to make the things that they do ladder up to those decisions and that vision. So it was really a powerful moment.
Fantastic moment. I don't know that I've ever had a story that takes something as fundamental as an org chart that has so much impact. But let's talk about some of the things that probably did for that organization. For that owner, they were probably for the first time free of making every decision that happened inside of that business.
That's right.
Right? You talked about the empowerment of and the connection of having the org chart and understanding a reporting structure or just simply the ladder of things, right? For how many years had that owner founder been the decision maker because the buck stops there and everybody came running up to, I'm going to make a gross assumption that it was dad. Everybody came up and he was the decision maker.
Yeah. Yeah. In this case, it was a man. But yes, that is the exact way it had gone for 20, I think it was 22 years. They operated almost in a hub and spoke model where everything came back to him and he was the decision maker and everyone felt that they reported to him. I mean, when you have a large $30 million business, I mean, that is a lot of pressure to have on one person's shoulders. So just as you described, it was this relief moment of, oh, wow, now I have others. I can kind of give them the top line. They will then take that implication for their functional area or their team and roll it out.
Game-changing opportunity in something, again, and I don't want to use the word simple, but right, it's an org chart. It tells a story. It's a powerful story. But what an amazing change for a company functioning at 30 million. I'm going to imagine then after some time with you, there was some growth in the size of that business.
Yes, yes. And you know what? It actually was a pretty neat 2 years after we implemented that. And it was one of many changes that we, of course, implemented. And it does take some time. I mean, it's never a light switch, right? You can't just flip something and then everything's fixed. It's something that has to take hold, take root, and it takes a little bit of time. But the owner of this business, maybe it was 2 or 3 years later, said to me, I was finally able to leave my firm, go on a vacation with my family, and disconnect for the first time in his entire adult life. And so that's when I get goosebumps on my arms. I mean, it's the moments where we are actually making a difference in people's lives. That is what I get a lot of joy from.
No, that's a fantastic, connection point. A metric that we use with my teams when we work in situations similar to that is for an owner founder, can you comfortably walk away from your business for 30 days and know that it'll be just fine without you?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And it's something as simple as taking a vacation and not being on the phone working the whole time is a huge milestone for somebody who for 20 years had been business first 24/7. And that is a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that.
It's a fun one to remember.
And it shows in your telling of it how right, that was a huge impact for them. And I love when we can have those. I got goosebumps myself. But not everything goes that well all of the time. Will you talk to me some about challenges that you've helped clients overcome, or from a different perspective in growing your own business, some of the challenges that you've had with growth and scale and how you've navigated?
Yeah, absolutely. As much as this pains me to admit, we've actually been a part of several very successful divorces in business. And I would say sometimes folks come to us and they have irreconcilable differences. They are partners and they want different paths, they want different futures. And I think that's part of one of the blessings that we have is being an unbiased kind of, having a higher vantage point, being able to look at it with a different perspective. And we've been able to help those partners navigate the type of split where they stay friends, they're happy, they are fulfilled in that. I use the word divorce to be a little bit more salacious probably, but it's truly, I mean, we get one of these, right? We get one life. And if they're not doing what they want or their partner isn't taking them in a direction that they want any longer, why live a life and have all of your work product go towards something that you're not interested in, not happy with, not rewarded by? And so I think it's an important recognition that, yeah, it doesn't always go perfectly. And there sometimes can be that type of moment where you make a break and you go in opposite directions. So I definitely am, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Maybe this is why it kind of like they broke up at the end, but it still is a part of our life. And, as humans, I mean, there are life changes, there are different components for different generations. Um, there's lots happening in the world. So we just have to be, again, cognizant that it's not always going to be that type of perfect, beautiful ending that we always wanted. So,
And I think it's an interesting point to talk through, right? In the startup journey, there's a lot of focus on wanting to have businesses that have co-founders so that it's not all resting on an individual. But over time, what that business means to the co-founders can change fundamentally. One may be all in 24/7, 7 days a week. I live it, breathe it, love it. And somebody else is like, hey, this was a part of whatever my journey is all about, but it's a piece, not the whole.
yes.
And having somebody to help navigate through that and, a divorce, a partner counseling, however you want to play with that reference is a powerful role for a third party advisor to sit in because you're actually taking care of three sets of needs, each of the partners, but then that business as its own entity. And so there's three things you have to care for in that. I know that these are probably harder stories to tell, but can you walk us through a little bit about how you care for the three different perspectives and help people get to that happily ever after that may be separate?
Yep. Yep. I would say, you brought in that third entity, which is the business. And that's the one that we, are, I would say, primarily concerned with, especially because, of course, if you have two partners and it's more complicated if there's more than two. But let's just take the scenario of two. you have alignments, you have people that have worked together in various ways, may have personal connections with the, owners of the business. And so there are a lot of aspects that need to be managed. At the end of the day, I think our job as outside consultants or coaches, we want to minimize any hardship to the people, but we are especially focused on making sure that the business does not feel any repercussions from this type of, separation or, I look at it though also as an evolution in the business. I mean, again, every business, every career is on a journey path. And there are points in time where things might change. I mean, think about all of the businesses that have been adopting AI in the last couple of worlds or years. It is a totally new world for us. I mean, it truly is, a changed business world. And so we have to adapt. And so again, I would say, supporting all of the other people in the business, supporting the clients, making sure that whatever their business model or whatever their business output is not affected. And then secondarily, making sure that the people are okay as they go on to their separate paths, whether they're looking to do something else in their career, retiring. I mean, again, it can be any number of things. So,
And
yeah,
some of the separations could be in really positive ways in that it might turn into, and I don't know if you have experience with this, but as I was listening to you, right, the business may turn into an ESOP, right? It may be that the change is it becomes employee owned rather than partner owned. And there's lots of different ways that this can happen. And it is one of the things that you were describing through that is tool and an idea that is so important to me, and that starting with the client of the business, right? They're not your clients, but your clients' clients, and taking care of that set of customers and understanding who they are, what they need, how the employees serve them, right? It is still always it's a business first mindset to help navigate what really is oversimplified into some form of organizational change because right, we're having some sort of a leadership change. It's a people journey.
that's right. That's right. I have another example for you. I guess you had asked, even in my own business, how, I've dealt with challenge or dealt with one of the principles that, as a business coach, I really take to heart is that I'm always going to tell the truth. And sometimes that's difficult, but I would say, it's better for me. And at the onset of any relationship, I'm pretty direct in telling them there are going to be things that I may say or suggest that, are not what you want to hear. But my job is to tell it to you straight because I find that if you don't say it straight, it'll come out crooked. And my job, again, is to help you. And I'm going to showcase things that you might be doing so well and you don't recognize. It is a true strength and you don't see. And I'm also going to point out some things that you may have a blinder to. There might be things that you don't know you're doing that are holding you back or creating friction or, again, any of these things. And so that has been, I would say, it's hard for folks sometimes to hear some truths that maybe they don't want to know or don't want to hear. And, I've probably lost some clients and maybe even lost some friends from it. But in a business world, I feel that that is what my value is to see things from a different perspective. And so again, I very much rely on the truth and say the truth. Yeah. So that's one of the things I wanted to share with you. It's not always gone perfectly, but it is what I'm committed to.
And that's a big one, Sarah, right? Especially in our world today. The word truth is a hard one for a lot of people, and what is actually true or not. And as a coach, as an advisor, standing in that space and being true to it, and you said, because if I don't shoot straight, it comes out crooked, right? That's powerful. And that is a tool that every leader should have heard from you that says, oh my gosh, I need somebody like that in my corner. Because first and foremost, the role of a coach is to be there to support the player, in this case, right? Executives, leaders, whoever they are, to be the best versions of themselves that they can be. And that's why athletes have so many different kinds of coaches. Business coaching is sometimes a topic that gets, overshadowed, and it's important. And I think it is as simple as You're there to be a truth teller. And I love that it can be distilled down into something that has so much impact and is so sometimes incredibly hard to hear and accept. But sometimes the baby is ugly. And we have to acknowledge that. And with our clients, that's a hard moment. When you have the ahas, when you have highlighted something for them that they did not know that they were doing or that their behavior had the impact that it had on others, what happens after they've had that first aha with truth?
hmm Well, it obviously varies by person. There's no strict guideline on any of this. Is it possible I'm wrong? Absolutely. I think you're getting distracted here by too many things. And so you are possibly leading your team down a complicated path. So, my feedback to a business leader or an owner in that situation would be, hey, I'm trying to point out something that could make you more effective. Again, is it 100% accurate? No, it's my perspective from looking in on this situation. And, you've paid me to give you my observations and my reflections. There's all sorts of good and bad that I'm able to share with them. And I do try to mix it up so that it's not, again, hurting their feelings or causing them, a major crisis. But again, sometimes that hard feedback is hard for them to hear.
Critics. And if you have piqued interest and curiosity from members of the audience, how do they learn more about you or Point Northeast?
Yes, perfect. I would say the Point Northeast website is the best spot. My contact information is there. I have an entire team of folks, and most of us are in the same category where we've done extraordinary careers in corporate America. We've worked on small businesses as well. And there's tremendous appetite for us to help people who sometimes it gets lonely at the top. If you're a business leader or you're a business owner, your employees are not your friends. You may be friendly with them, but you can't vent to them, and they are still, of course, your employees. Find a business coach, whether it's us or others, that can come in and offer a new, fresh perspective. And I can almost promise you it will unleash some new growth.
Sarah, absolutely loved our conversation. And you took us through lots of different things today, starting with your own journey going from big corporate to an entrepreneurial environment, and then taking an entrepreneurial environment back into big corporate and highlighting for us the power of questions, which I think is the connection point for you and why coaching is such a fabulous role and fit for you, because questions unlock everything inside of a business. And as you were talking and sharing stories today, I think that there are moments where all of our listeners can understand being the leader who built a business based on what they're really, really good at and knew nothing about running a business. It happens every day in every industry. And that's the power of why we have coaches out there who can help you translate and take what you do really, really, really well and actually run a business that can grow and scale. And sometimes that might mean you have to take a different path than the person who started that journey with you, but that's okay because it is a journey for a reason. Sara, thank you for being with us today. And audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate.